Hey guys, welcome to this video on how to beat taller boxers. This is the second and final part, so if you haven't watched part 1 where we cover Tyson, Canelo and Kawhi, go ahead and watch that first if you'd like, since we'll be referencing it quite a bit this video. But otherwise, today we'll be covering Manny Pacquiao, Oleksandyr Usyk and Vasyl Lomachenko, and we'll pay particular attention on how these boxers may choose to outbox or use a different type of pressure and tactics compared to the other three in order to beat taller boxers. So I hope you enjoy this video and learn a lot from it, and let's get into it. Okay, so if we take a look at Manny Pacquiao, we're going to see him circling on the outside of the ring, right? Away from the taller man, not towards him. It's for the simple setup of forcing your opponent to overlean as the taller boxer and give up his height advantage. We saw that a little bit with Canelo in the last video, but here we're going to see how Manny Pacquiao purposefully sets it up by circling to his left. So the first thing he's going to do is kind of put a high guard look, step away, use some slip looks as he uses his left foot first and takes the angles to the left. Has a great understanding of the distance and knows he's not near Margarito at all. Now, why is he moving to the left? This is an important thing. He's inviting the backhand while making it hard to make reads with the jabs for Margarito. So as you can see, he circles, adds a little high guard look to look if Margarito is going to come in. Then he takes some distance, he circles as he steps back. And once Margarito gets a little bit closer, Pacquiao's just going to bother the guard of Margarito by flicking out a jab. This isn't meant to land. It's meant for two things for Pacquiao. Firstly, for him to understand the range. Knows he's a little bit more than arm's length away because he has to push this jab. And also, since Margarito isn't biting in this exchange so far, he knows a little touch jab will probably make him a little bit more reactive, which it does, and Margarito feints in before Pacquiao threatens to parry whatever shot comes back before throwing his hook around the guard. So Pacquiao was ready to throw a counter there, which Margarito knew and just tested the waters instead. But it should give you a good sense of what's Pacquiao's intent in this situation. Continues to move around to the left, raises his guard, and once he sees the jab feint, looks to defend himself with the parry there. Continues to create space a little bit with another parry. Doesn't need to counter every time Margarito steps in. And what he's trying to do now is get Margarito a little bit more comfortable with jabbing the gloves of Pacquiao. Once he's stepped back, he's going to break his base, reset to his left a tiny bit, just to make sure he's constantly changing the angle for Margarito's hips to adjust. And then continues to step back as he uses his high guard. And why does he use this high guard? Because he can look for Margarito's punches way better here, as well as time them for counters. He sees Margarito feint in again, so decides to jab out as he springs on his back foot a little bit and creates some space. Again, is trying to dominate the long range here before seeing Margarito has to adjust and feeling it's safe to jab in and just get his reading better by touching the forehead. Now, this is important that he's just landed here, because this means to Margarito that not only is Pacquiao landing and has found his sense of distance, Margarito has made no correct reads off his own measurements, and which is going to make him a little bit overeager to close the distance on Pacquiao. Now, Pacquiao uses a wonderful slip feint, which brings out the guard momentarily of Margarito. Just makes a read off that feint for later, continues to slip the other way to test out reactions, and Margarito respects that one as well. And now that he's done two slip feints, he's going to add a punch off the third and sneaks this beautiful left hand in again, dominating that long range whilst taking the inside angle there. So what Pacquiao did there was condition him to react a little bit to these slip feints before making it hard to read when he was going to attack. And this is one of Pacquiao's best features. He was insanely unpredictable off when he was going to counter you or when he was going to engage first. He would often let you work for a long period just to let you get comfortable. And of course, Margarito's just eaten this left hand now. So what does he want to do? Retaliate, obviously. And Pacquiao just pulls away and jabs over the top. So Margarito's already getting a little bit overeager here. Again, Pacquiao readjusts his balance a little bit, stays in front of Margarito with the high guard, sees the jab coming forwards, tries to pull away, it kind of catches him, but manages to force Margarito to put all his weight onto this front foot with this jab before catching him with his own as he tries to pull back. Now Margarito's annoyed. Pacquiao is continuing to dominate the long range. Pacquiao uses a little bit of a right slip look there, which Margarito doesn't like and wants to engage against. So he wants to retaliate from these previous exchanges and comes in with a 1-2. Pacquiao puts all his weight from his front to his back foot as he sort of steps back with a squeeze. And as he lets Margarito come in, again, very poorly with his feet, unfortunately. This is not how to do a 1-2-1, squaring up your base like this and then falling in with your back foot first. Pacquiao knows he can catch him square, and from this squeeze position, goes into a sideways on jab, so gets really bladed, digs this left uppercut to the body. Margarito tries to clinch, it's a weak clinch, and pulls away at the same time before Pacquiao lands this left hand over the top. Again, a similar exchange here, but in the second round, where Pacquiao comes in, Margarito's happy to launch an attack to the gloves just to make some reads and measurements. Pacquiao sort of catches the first before leaning back on the second, and again threatening his lead hand counter. Now Margarito's completely squared up from throwing this two, which is unfortunately very poor technique from Margarito. And Pacquiao's like, you know what, he's completely square. I can definitely just jab through the middle here, exploiting that position very quickly. Again, is occupying that guard from distance, goes for an offline two as we've seen him do before, which forces Margarito into a bad position. Margarito knows this, wants to retaliate. Pacquiao is again just occupying him from long range, and off this jab makes the read that Margarito's has forward momentum here, so decides to step back. Margarito completely muddles his feet as he's coming forward, and then catch him as he's resetting his base by stepping back in with this jab and then continuing with this combination as Margarito moves backwards in a square position. Now, I'm not sure that completely lands, but it's an interesting exchange if we watch that back, since Pacquiao's intent is to occupy from long range with different methods, all to bother Margarito enough into retaliation where he will eventually give up his height, overlean, and break his base. Now again, we were just talking about Pacquiao's timing. Here they come out of this clinch, and Pacquiao's going to move around to the left, but allow Margarito to just get through with this 1-1-2 to the guard. It's not the greatest squeeze position I've ever seen, but he does allow Margarito to gain a little bit of confidence before breaking his base and resetting away to the left, since he was near the ropes there. But again, he doesn't have to counter everything, and he shouldn't, since Margarito will be too hesitant at one point. Again, we see that sort of stiff arm jab defense here as Margarito feints, which makes Pacquiao create some distance, and as he jabs out, Pacquiao jabs at the same time to keep his own and to defend the jab simultaneously. After this, what's he going to do? Slip feint to the left while showing his left hand, just to make Margarito a little bit reactive. Then slip to the other way with a feint. Margarito's completely overleaned here. Pacquiao's not going to punish him for it, and actually creates even more distance. Now, Margarito's already overleaned, so creating even more distance to the left is just going to make him have a complete misunderstanding of his own distance. And again, he continues to circle around to the left with the high guard, sort of small slip looks, as he invites the right hand to come in from this position, sees the jab coming out, so he jabs at the same time, dominating the long range by stifling any jabs or measurements that Margarito wants to make. Again, continues to move around to the left, as I think he just flicks out his left hand here as he takes the slip look. Continues with the slip looks. A good word that you can use for this is kind of lulls you into thinking that it's a slow-paced battle. As he continues to create space, is waiting in his high guard, and as he sees the jab come on, tries to walk Margarito onto a simultaneous counter here and use this same slip position to land this short left hand to the body. Now another clip. Here we're going to see Pacquiao bait Margarito with this square on squeeze look, which Margarito is very happy to try and exploit to the body. After making this read of the right hand though, Pacquiao steps back from the hook to the body and resets to his left. Is a little bit square on as he comes back, since his base didn't create too much distance, so he does get jabbed here, but then again creates a little bit more space off this and resets again to make it hard for Margarito to understand the distance from where he's just landed. Uses a better squeeze position as he steps back again and moves around to his left, raises it for this jab here and pulls away from any possible follow-ups before saying, okay, I've let all of these shots go unnoticed. He's now very confident to come in with an attack, and as I step around to the left, I'm going to invite the jab, continue to rhythmically put up this slow high guard look, and out of nowhere just spring out from this slow pace into this really quick counter where he just sort of pulls back from the jab, lands his own over the top, goes to the body before finishing with this nice screw shot. Some beautiful work there, and as he moves around to the left, takes the angle to square up Margarito. Margarito is also not super ready to engage because he's just broken his base and needs to readjust, and Pacquiao beats him to the engagement first by coming in with this full punch attack. Lovely, lovely work. And again, staying very cautious of the taller man, as since he steps back in, he immediately sort of picks up his parry hand, creates some space away from the jab, because if he creates it away from the jab, he creates it away from the right hand. Now here, unfortunately, he squares up a little bit too much. Margarito manages to come through the middle, but Pacquiao doesn't let him just get away with this, and as he thinks he's coming in with another attack, feints his own counter out, which completely gets Margarito in a defensive position. And Pacquiao's going to dominate from this longer range position again with another slip feint, which brings the guard in before capitalizing with a jab and a two as he takes the angle away from the ropes. Some beautiful use of feints here to occupy the taller man from long range, and also, as you can see, to get a better position and move towards the center of the ring. And it's also pretty important to note that this is one of the only times he actually takes the outside angle against Margarito, since most of this fight has been fought moving to the left. And on that point, I know a lot of you will have boxing gyms where you're always taught to take the outside angle against a southpaw boxer, or even an orthodox boxer if you're a southpaw. But if you create space as you move to the inside angle, and you're well aware of the distance of their jab and therefore their backhand, you can absolutely do both. And there are many, many angles that you can take from both sides. I really don't like when fighters are too limited with always needing to take the outside angle. Now in this clip, we're going to see a very different fight, but similar in stature, I suppose. We see Usyk versus Fury. I've picked their second fight, and we're going to see how Usyk forces a taller man to reach in his own way. So the first thing we're going to see is Fury back off after Usyk shows him his lead hand to the air here, decides to create space and reset around to his right. Usyk does the perfect thing in cutting off to his left, not following Tyson straight on, and is going to force Fury into throwing first by closing the distance quite quickly. And how does he start it? With this sort of touch jab slash kind of frame with the front hand. As you can see, Fury tries to sort of parry upwards with the forearm before lining Usyk up to time him coming in with this right hand. But Usyk's intent here was to force Tyson into throwing by occupying the lead hand and forcing out the rear. Once he does, you can see Usyk know the right hand is coming. He blocks in, makes himself super small as he changes his level, and then once he's got the taller man to commit poorly by squaring up, and as you can see the back foot comes flying out, he tries to land this short left hand over the top before Tyson pushes him back. So very interesting exchange. I know when people say, oh, he's a shorter fighter, you've got to hit him with the uppercut as he gets in. It's a bit of a basic way of always thinking about these exchanges. And there you see Usyk exploiting it quite well. Now here we're going to see long range occupation, a little bit like Manny Pacquiao did. He feints with his front hand, forces Tyson into a high guard before feinting low with the level change and then occupying the gloves through the middle. Now what's Fury thinking? Fury's thinking, oh, I've squared up, I'm on the ropes. He's won an exchange from long range, I must retaliate, and of course he does. And what is Usyk looking for after this sort of guard occupation here is he knows straight away that Fury will want to retaliate, walks a little bit over to his left to get straight on, and then tries to parry the front hand, slips the backhand, gets Tyson Fury to square up, hook to the body, hook to the head, and a straight two to follow it up. Lovely, lovely work. Again, this retaliation that Fury does here is something that you can absolutely expect if you start to have success from long range against a taller boxer. And it's a perfect time to look for the counter. So, okay, they step over and Usyk cuts him off again. He's even sort of baiting him with these sort of lean overlooks. Breaks the timing of forward, back, forward, back, forward, and then stutters into a jab here, which makes it really hard to read, especially since Fury's lead hand isn't up to defend any oncoming jabs. Usyk takes the angle, again occupies the guard from long range with this sort of slip into this screw shot, and then walks over, uses another slip look as Fury measures where Usyk's head is. Usyk's more interested in engaging into attack where he has to take the angle, so decides to move across to his left, using the slip look here with the squeeze to make some reads on Fury's intent, again slipping to the other direction before deciding, okay, I'm going to shuffle across, jab out to the air. Fury tries to take a back step with his own jab. So Usyk's like, okay, let me test the waters. I'll feint first, then see if it's safe to close a little bit more distance with my front step. And here's a good example of Usyk timing Fury's in and out, which is a little bit lazy. We're going to see Fury change from this low lead hand position into an in and out feint. And as he sees Usyk feint out his own counter, he steps back, but then decides to come back in with an attack. It's very obvious he's about to come in with an attack. Does he need to step forward as the taller man? No. But Usyk lets him and then steps forward to meet his jab, slip onto the outside of it, and then land this beautiful left hand to counter him simultaneously as he loses his reach advantage and squares up. So I briefly mentioned testing the waters, and it's a real skill that you'll want to develop as a taller boxer, as a shorter boxer, as any type of boxer. And it's basically the skill of creating hesitancy with your forward momentum, as well as breaking your own timings so that it's much harder for a good counterpuncher to read your engagements. Now, I know that's very wordy and it probably doesn't make much sense. I'm going to give you an example with two of the best to ever do this skill, which is Usyk and Lomachenko. So we'll start with Usyk. As you can see, he occupies the front hand. Sorry about the screen recording there. Then he level changes up and down with the wand, gets Tyson Fury to back off as he steps forward into that space before feinting, coming in and coming back out again. He's then going to test the reaction if he goes to the right. So he brings up his guard and is very aware as he shuffles over. Sees it's all safe to do so. Fury feints his lead hand, so Usyk brings out his parry, creates a little bit of space here before coming back in. And now taking that back, he's already started testing the waters here by just baiting out whether he comes in or not, what reaction is Fury going to bring. Very patient momentum. And once he's made this read off the high guard, as well as moving to his right, he's going to do the same thing again as he sees the jab feint from Tyson Fury. He uses a high guard temple look, slips to the outside before occupying the lead hand first, taking the outside angle and landing this left hand to the body. Again, if you watch my other video on this, creating a sense of threat to the body, making Fury aware of it, which was a huge part of this fight. Now he's going to cut him off a little bit to his left, stay back in the center, and then start his in and out feints again. How does he test out the waters here against Fury, who's waiting for him to come in? Well, he creates some space before coming in with the jab to the air and then the gloves, then feinting a little bit low as he changes his level, sees Fury in a defensive position, so jabs the chest instead and goes again back upstairs. Beautiful lead hand work. We were talking about being stubborn in the last video, and here's a good example. So I hope you see he's testing the reactions first and then he's coming into an attack. Now we're going to see better examples of this, so bear with me. And speaking of, here's a beautiful example after he resets away from this exchange, since Fury's trying to get a little bit more aggressive here. We obviously know how Usyk set up that first lead hand attack, and now he's going to do the same sort of thing but all in feints as he occupies the lead hand a bit, slips over with a look, then double feints the jab with the air and then tries to come in a little bit closer before feinting the body. And as he sees the reaction from Fury to catch him coming in with a hook, since he's just seen Usyk do this, he steps back out of range and then comes back in with a double feint. And now I hope you've seen that's completely broken, and he's continuing to do it, but I hope you've seen this is completely breaking Fury's timing for not only his counters, because Usyk's stepping out of range, but it starts to break Fury's whole rhythm by reacting to Usyk all the time. Now Usyk isn't charging forwards, and he's going to start to bring the same rhythm as he level changes, shuffles to the right, level changes, shuffles to the right, level changes, shuffles to the right, and then shoots an offline two to the body. Now if you're Fury, here, against these constant barrages of feints, you become a completely reactionary opponent. And it's very mentally tiring to deal with someone who's testing the waters like this. And very important for a shorter boxer to do so against a taller boxer. But really and truly, against anyone who's a good counterpuncher, you should be patient in testing the waters. Now, after he lands this left hand to the body, he's going to break the timing even more and feint and come straight back in with an attack. And this is an important clip for two reasons. Now, Usyk's done excellently there, but unfortunately, after landing this body shot, Fury's a little bit more aware, and Usyk thinks, oh, I've tested the waters enough, I can just feint and come in with a 1-2, but the taller man uses his range a lot better here, and times Usyk coming in with an uppercut off the frame, since in my opinion, Usyk wasn't patient enough in that exchange. And it's the main mistake you see with people testing the waters, is that they usually think 1 or 2 does the trick, but truthfully, you should be completely breaking someone's rhythm for a longer period of time, since good counterpunches can time you coming in off not much reads, so you have to completely break their rhythm. Now here we're going to see an example of a good lead hand battle. Usyk staying extremely defensively aware as he squeezes and steps back from this jab from Tyson Fury before creating space and moving around to his right. Continues to occupy that lead hand and jabs to the air. Here again, test the waters to see if he comes in, what happens. So he feints coming in. Fury flicks out his lead hand. So he feints it again and then draws out that lead hand so he can jab under to the body. Beautiful work. Once he's taken command of the center here, he's going to use his wand lead hand in order to feint around. And again, what are all these feints doing? It's just making it hard for Fury to understand whether Usyk is going to commit into an attack or not. And that is honestly the simplest way I can describe testing the waters. So Usyk's continued to to feint, then he touches the glove out a little bit, uses a squeeze look to feint coming in, which draws out another lead hand from Fury. Usyk steps back again, being a lot more patient here and not needing all of these feints to immediately set up an attack. Another good thing about testing the waters is that it can help you make better reads on your defense. So here Usyk uses a high guard look. He then again feints coming in with a sort of level change, which draws out the jab from Tyson Fury. So he manages to step back and create some space since he knows Fury will retaliate to a feint. Continues to stay away from that lead hand just by an inch and not much more before again, after creating enough space, decides to retaliate with a couple of feints, starts by controlling the lead hand punching lane a little bit, and then a very short slip with a squeeze position, which makes Fury respectful. Now Fury wants to come back in hard because of this feint, so decides to, and we're going to see Usyk transition beautifully into a squeeze. Lovely work before understanding Fury's found his range for his right hand and is kind of pushed backwards, but creates the space backwards a little bit before resetting out to his right in a new angle. And Fury's back to square one, if that makes sense a little bit, by having to not only readjust his hips, but need to find his new distance again. And now does Usyk retaliate from this 1-2 in a straight line? Of course not. He resets to the right, he comes back in, and does he throw straight away? No, he's going to close the distance intelligently by testing the waters. Here he feints coming in with his lead hand, then he feints again as he steps around to the right. So now he's got a bit of a better sense of distance. He's going to continue to stutter in with this sort of level change feint with his wand again, which draws out the lead hand of Fury before bringing it high, forcing Fury to come up with him and then flicking it out before landing this left hand to the body. So great retaliation over a longer period by Usyk. Okay, so another exchange for testing the waters is at the start of this round where Usyk shuffles forward with a high guard look, bouncing around to his right, but staggering his momentum a little bit as he feints his lead hand just partially there. He changes up his feints as he stutters and then shows his jab before slipping off slightly to the right, which makes Fury very reactive with the touch jabs backwards here. After this slip feint, Usyk bounces out, comes back in a little bit to his right, stutters a little bit before showing his lead hand to the air and gloves. And as he brings out the lead hand of Tyson Fury, level changes and then just uses a touch jab. Now, this is still a lead hand battle. One of the things we were talking about in the last video with Canelo versus Jacobs, where the shorter man has to bring lots and lots of good lead hand feints into his lead hand battle in order to threaten his use of it. Now, no one's particularly winning this battle so far. Fury's keeping the distance whilst Usyk threatens his lead hand quite nicely. But then from this long range battle, Fury's going to decide to try to land his jab instead. As Usyk cuts him off to the left, Fury feints beautifully and then comes in with this sort of up jab into Usyk's squeeze, which is another super important element of lead hand battles in general, is just defense of their lead hand. And then Usyk's going to continue to move around to his left and then start to test out the waters again. And now all these feints that he set up previously, although it might have looked like, oh, Fury was keeping the distance, you'll see how it actually wasn't. Since off the openings he made off those feints and the reads he made off them, Usyk's more confident to say, okay, I'm now going to move around to my right. I'm going to start with a level change feint, which is going to bring out the lead hand of Fury. Then I'm going to come up again with my lead hand, which gets him to back off. And listen, maybe I'm reading too into this, but as he sees Usyk come back up, Fury suddenly touches his nose. Now, I know Fury does that a lot, but these little body language tells can really tell you when someone's breaking their concentration or is starting to be a little bit overwhelmed with these constant feints that Usyk's producing. And as Fury's resetting a little bit, Usyk continues to go high, then low again before sneaking this jab underneath through the square opening, with Fury, who didn't create enough space due to what it looked like was a bit of a break in concentration from the feints. So let's continue watching this lead hand battle where Usyk tests the waters out. Here he's going to feint the slip look, which Tyson Fury really doesn't like, and tries to say no to that opening that he might have created by throwing a hook to that position, which is a pretty good thing for Fury to do since he doesn't want Usyk to start exploiting that. Again, Usyk's going to make a read and test the waters after defending this shot backwards and feints Fury to test his reaction with the jab. Fury reacts in the same way as usual, this time with a worse base. Again, a little bit of a break in concentration there. And after the feint, Usyk sneaks under with this jab to the body. So with him testing the waters this much, Usyk is completely, in my opinion, dominating the lead hand battle so far. Again, this is more of a positive that Fury did in this fight, but as soon as Usyk comes back into a squeeze position here and feints the slip look to test the waters, of course Tyson Fury really doesn't like that position because it's a very threatening position. He double jabs at the gloves before hooking around to to make sure Usyk really doesn't take control with it. Now, it's a good squeeze from Usyk, and he decides to back off and reset to his left. And here he's going to break his rhythm completely as he sees Fury coming forward and staying in the center of the ring. Off this reset, Usyk's going to say, okay, he's just landed a left hook to me. How am I going to retaliate? It's a bit obvious he prepares himself a little bit for an attack here, but manages to feint a bit high before coming low with the jab, brings out the lead hand of Fury, since Fury's been a bit conditioned to expect these body shots now, and sneaks this really good left hand in upstairs before he tries to follow up, but Fury clinches up. So I hope you see here how this previous lead hand battle, along with testing the waters, with him taking whatever openings he can get, has allowed Usyk to suddenly start to find the setup for his left hand. Okay, we have a new exchange where we'll look at Tyson Fury's tactic of framing on Usyk's lead hand in order to keep the distance. So he's creating space while he does this. Usyk's in his squeeze look, shuffling forward with sort of staggered momentum here. So just these bounce feints, almost testing out the waters themselves. And as he sees the opening created from this frame to the body, Tyson Fury isn't good enough at stepping back with this frame or keeping it strong so that Usyk can't break the distance. So Usyk lifts it up in order to take the outside angle and land this 2 to the body. Huge tactic in this fight, obviously, and this is how he set it up. Now, after landing this, he sees Fury readjust his feet and decides to break his rhythm by not going straight away into testing the waters and feinting, coming low to the body and trying to come up with this left hand to the head. And we'll see another example of that. Very important for shorter boxers to be stubborn against the frame with their own control over it. And although it isn't shown up too much in this clip, one way you can look at it, if it's your frame against their frame, is who will break their elbow posture first. And here you see Usyk take the center of the ring, then he feints out his lead hand to the air, which lifts Tyson Fury's to make sure he's going to try to defend that punching lane. And then Usyk starts his movement around to his right with his stronger touch jab. And now in terms of what I just said, it's Fury who breaks Usyk's posture with the elbow on this kind of frame, but Usyk's just the more stubborn man in this exchange as he pushes back against it, as he takes the angle to the right, lets Fury focus on trying to keep it as strong as possible on the hand of Usyk, which doesn't allow him to create any space. And then Usyk exploits this opening to the body that's been created like before seeing Fury's hand not retract fully back, so he decides to step in with another jab to the body there for extra body work. Okay, and for the final segment, now this is much more of an appreciative segment for someone who does everything I've just spoken about in the last 2 videos, by the way, exceptionally well. And there's no better fight to study from him than this fight with Luke Campbell. And I'm of course talking about Vasyl Lomachenko. We're going to see slip feints, awareness to the body, lead hand battles, testing the waters, everything done to an exceptional level. So I can't wait to show you these clips. So we'll start by Lomachenko circling to the left of Luke Campbell as he decides to come forward with some pressure. Now, how's he going to do this? So he sees the left hand from Luke Campbell, which raises his guards into this high guard position so he can be defensively aware. And from this high guard position is going to use a slip feint. And off this slip feint, Luke Campbell backs off and tries to jab again. Lomachenko can see the jab coming, so slips onto the inside of it and then purposefully counters with a screw shot to the gloves. Now, why to the gloves? Because it's a progressive closing of the distance. He isn't trying to land everything just yet. Now, it looks like he's going to come back in hard, except he then stutters with a foot feint, shows a couple of lead hand feints off before again jabbing forwards but purposefully aiming the back glove. Remember, a progressive closing of the distance. And then again, of course, stepping back from Luke Campbell's reach. So he bounces back to the center and he comes back in with this high guard look. Off the high guard looks, he's going to try to make a read off the slip. And as he's seen squared up a bit, just squeezes a little bit as Luke Campbell tries to be patient with his own 2 and not try to commit to it too quickly. So Lomachenko creates a little bit of space, uses a slip feint as he goes backwards, and then another level change with the lead hand, and then feints coming forward before stepping back out again. So completely breaking the rhythm of all of these touch shots that Luke Campbell is trying to use to find his distance. Uses a parry look for the touch jab here as he raises his lead glove to his temple to make sure he's showing Luke Campbell how small he can make this defensive position. And then from here looks like he's about to counter this touch jab with a jab of his own, but just feints it out and steps back again. I hope you see how insane these tempo changes are from Lomachenko. tries to come forward and break the distance a little bit, uses the squeeze to help him, but once he's seen he's a little bit too close, decides to back off instead. But then from here breaks the backwards momentum, raises into a high guard, sees the left hand coming in, and then uses a slip and a roll feint to test the waters out a little bit. So let's see, Luke Campbell feints back now, and Lomachenko puts his weight on his back foot just to make sure he's not too close. He's going to try to come forward here a bit progressively with this sort of level change position as he moves forward. He then shuffles in, sees the level change from Luke Campbell, and decides to squeeze and shuffle back instead. Now, Luke Campbell's very confident that he's just feinted him backwards, so what's Lomachenko going to do? He's actually just going to step to his left to change the angle a little bit, which forces Luke Campbell to step with him. And from here, Lomachenko's going to half step forward into this slip feint. Again, once he sees the touch jab, uses a parry with a high lead hand. Feints coming in with another slip look, which gets Luke Campbell to back off. This time, Lomachenko doesn't step back and has actually broken the distance before again raising his lead hand as he steps forward. And why does he do this? So he can drop it as a feint before exploiting the slip look that Luke Campbell gave him, which squared him up for this jab to the head here. Again, once he's found his range, feints the step back because he wants to stagger his forward momentum, as well as make sure Luke Campbell isn't making a good read on these distances. And as he sees Luke Campbell come forward, parries the touch jab as he almost feints his counter out, and then circles off to his right, changes the angle in order to readjust his base, before using a couple of more head movement looks to test whether he can still come in or not. From this low position, does get caught with a little bit of a shot on top of the head here, but then goes straight back into his slip feint to the right, slip feint to the left, which doesn't get Luke Campbell to create much distance as he's done before. So Lomachenko decides, okay, I'm going to come forward with an exchange, which is another reason why you should test out the waters, is because at one point, the person trying to time you won't be sure if you're coming forward or not, and start to make poor defensive reactions and start to freeze a little bit. As Luke Campbell's done a little bit here, Lomachenko exploits it with a jab to the head, flicking out the right again as he steps forward beautifully, and then exploits the opening that was given from this sort of frame position for this beautiful left hand to the body. And if you watch his feet, anyone who does my ladder drills, you can see he half steps into the slip feint before readjusting his back foot to square up Luke Campbell a bit, and that's when he's going to start his attack, before stepping in with a jab, stepping in with a jab again, and then turning the two with his foot. Just excellent footwork there. And again, Lomachenko doesn't have to be too flashy here, just very good use of fundamentals. Now again, he's just backed off Luke Campbell. He then cuts off the ring a little bit to his left, looks like he's going to be aggressive, decides to use a slip feint, gets Campbell reactive. Campbell freezes a slight bit and then comes in with this beautiful in and out feint, putting a huge amount of mental pressure on whether he's going to come forward or not, before again cutting him off a little bit to his right. Sees Campbell try to use his left hand to occupy the guard of Lomachenko, so Lomachenko decides, okay, I'm going to use my head movement looks to feint that I might come in. Campbell decides to follow that up, which smartly Lomachenko creates distance against. Another slip feint onto the inside of the jab, which gets Campbell to quickly retract. Campbell's got a lot of hesitancy in these touch shots right now because he's not sure when they'll be exploited. And then Lomachenko comes back to his normal position, feints high, looks like he's about to jab the body, but instead comes high with another jab before again progressively closing the distance and jabbing high before following with another, content with taking his time to progressively close the distance and not get greedy too quickly. So Campbell moves off to his right here. Lomachenko cuts him off a little bit. As he sees him step forward, he creates some space and resets a little bit to his left. And now it's Campbell who's going to want to retaliate. So how does Lomachenko deal with that? Off this slip look, he makes the read that Campbell is coming in with an attack, so decides to get into his high guard position so he can look for more defense, gets low for this body shot as he shuffles back and resets to the left, shuffles to the left. And why did he do that? Because similar to the way we were talking about Pacquiao, he's just creating distance from the backhand of Luke Campbell once he knows he's got that measurement, therefore messing up the measurement a little bit. Again, we're going to see a super similar exchange to how he started this round, with a slip look as he comes in, a slip feint to the other side, before trying to draw out the jab with this slip feint so he can come inside of it and come up with this shot here. Tries to even hold the hand a little bit of Campbell to line him up for this left hand here, but Luke Campbell manages to shuffle back well. A couple of more in and out feints, just showing a very relaxed look here after putting some pressure, before again breaking that momentum, slipping, and instead of just using this as a feint, steps forward with a jab, mainly aiming the gloves there, before stepping back from the counter shot of Luke Campbell. Again, continues to dominate the lead hand battle here, stepping back from the jab there, good defense before feinting his own, getting Campbell into a more of a squeeze position, and continues to stay relaxed as he moves around to his left. A lovely level change, then comes back up high before feinting it low again and stepping forward with a jab and a parry at the same time. How does he end it? Of course, with that famous slip feint. Notices Luke Campbell's taking the right angle off this slip feint, wanting to square him up, so Lomachenko decides, no, let me back off, reset to my left and get a little bit more bladed again. As he sees the left hand coming though, squeezes in position, beautiful squeeze as he uses the right slip, but it sends him backwards a little bit. But look at this, as he readjusts his base, he comes back in and uses a lovely starter feint with the lead hand. As he sees the lead hand coming out from Luke Campbell, slips onto the inside of it, which makes Campbell hesitate, and then decides, okay, if I cut the distance now by moving forward, what happens? So he starts by closing the distance with the parry hand, sort of catching Luke Campbell's touch jab, makes him confident to know the timing and range, and then uses a big slip to the inside which defends 2 shots before rolling under to the right, stepping back out again to prepare himself, and then slip feint where he could definitely exploit the angle but doesn't. And that's what's causing trouble for Luke Campbell, obviously. It's the fact that sometimes he is completely open and Lomachenko isn't exploiting him, which causes so much mental traffic to deal with when you see these feints later on. So he slips inside of the jab before again feinting it low and coming high with sort of 2 flick shots coming in. Beautiful work, gets Luke Campbell to back off, cuts him off himself, for getting Campbell a little bit more comfortable with this rhythm, drawing out the lead hand to change it up completely with his slip feint, which he now uses as a slip counter. He creates the opening, shoots this left hand to the body, and then tries to follow up. Again, sort of a double step back here, comes back in with his slip roll feint just to test the waters, and as he sees the counter shots, steps back from that. And this whole segment set up everything he needed for later in the fight to start dominating it, due to the main reason that Luke Campbell just had no idea whether Lomachenko was going to exploit these positions or not. And I really recommend watching it in full, because him testing the waters the way he did allowed him to make so many reads for his own attacks, as well as create a sort of drowning feeling for Luke Campbell, since even as you can see here, when he's cutting the distance and giving Luke Campbell shots, Campbell still can't land, which is an excellent part of testing the waters. Anyway, I do hope everything was clear today. Did enjoy making this video. The next video will be on Jaron Ennis as an amateur, so look out for that. We'll go back to the amateur videos for a while now, I think. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you've learnt a lot, and I'll see you guys soon. Happy training, guys.